Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Madam Secretary. Following along some of the line of questioning that Senator Murphy engaged in, is it the proposal that these for-profit elementary schools, either or non-for-profit, must take all children who apply? Is that a requirement?
I'm sorry, sir, I'm the for-profit elementary
You
schools?
you have a parent that wants to go to a particular school, a for-profit school or not-for-profit school, not a public school. Would that school be required to take the student?
Are these schools that are receiving federal funds?
They have, you're proposing a voucher system apparently, which would be federal funds that the parents would.
I'm just trying to understand the hypothetical question.
Well, the hypothetical is very.
If there are schools that are receiving federal funds, they need to follow federal law.
So a private for-profit school would have to take a disabled student. They couldn't reject anyone who showed up with a voucher.
Any school that is receiving federal funds has to follow federal law, period.
But what does that mean? That's just a specific question. Would they have to
Just what I
accept a
said, that
disabled?
they have to follow the federal laws.
So they'd have to accept a disabled child. They would have to have an individual education plan, which they would follow. It would be exactly like a public school. Is that your position?
If the school is accepting federal funds,
Well, let me ask another
and
question.
let me also refer to the fact that states have implemented programs that for disabled students that parents willfully elect into and opt into. Parents are making those decisions. There is no requirement that.
But I'm saying the parent decides they want to go to this school, and they come up, and the school would have to accept that student. If the student had severe disabilities, they would have to accommodate their program to deal with that student's special disability. Is that your position?
If a school is accepting federal funds, they are
you-
going to follow federal laws.
So the voucher that is used to pay is you
I
consider
will
to be
repeat
federal?
again, if they're accepting federal funds,
Now-
they'll follow federal laws.
Let me ask you a question. You would consider that voucher federal funds, requiring them to follow federal laws?
Well, first of all, there is no voucher program currently, so this is all a hypothetical
No,
question.
it's not hypothetical.
It is,
No,
because
because
there
you're going to
isn't one.
publish rules, Madam Secretary, that's going to say you have to follow federal laws if you accept this voucher, which is federal funds.
I've said before that if a school is accepting federal funds, they have to follow federal laws.
So let me ask you a question. A for-profit school accepts a voucher, because that's what you're talking about, giving the parent the chance to move out of a public system into a private system. That would be considered by you the acceptance of federal funds, requiring the school to follow all the requirements that a public school would follow.
Any school that accepts federal funds will follow federal laws, period, without discrimination.
So your answer is yes. So the voucher system will trigger for-profit private schools or not-for-profit private schools to accept all students, as public schools do, to follow all the rules, particularly with regard to disabled children. That's the only conclusion I can draw from your answers, which are rather cryptic. Let me turn now to the higher education issues. The Pell Grant you seem to be suggesting as the appropriate mechanism and the only appropriate mechanism, because most of the other federal programs are zeroing out. The supplemental educational opportunity grants, cutting federal student aid in half, and yet you take $3.8 billion from the surplus of the Pell Grants, rather than providing for additional larger Pell Grants, et cetera. How does that make college more affordable?
Well, sir, the proposal is to take $3.8 billion from the surplus, leaving $4.9 billion in the surplus. And if there is a desire to increase the Pell Grant, the Pell Grant amounts for students, I think that is something that you have to consider.
Well, if we did, where would we get the money? We already have $3.8 billion in the
Well,
Pell Grant
there's
system.
going to, the Pell program continues to be fully funded and have supplemental resources there. So it will continue to be very healthy into the foreseeable future. And if you want to adjust the Pell rates, you certainly have the opportunity to do that.
And you would support that with a budget authority?
I'm not suggesting it. I'm saying that if it's your desire to increase it, you certainly have the opportunity to do that.
Well, we also have the opportunity to reject your suggestions and increase significantly
I acknowledge
the
that.
Pell Grants. So, thank you very much, Madam Secretary.